Microeconomics is one of the basics of business, and I think it's the biggest thing that people get wrong. And everyone hears it, supply and demand. We generally always try to give a supply without understanding that there's maybe not a demand for what we're trying to supply. So when you go out into the community, is to identify what the market wants before I say, oh, I want to make t-shirts. Well, who told you they wanted t-shirts? Nobody told you they
Hello. Welcome to another knowledge bomb episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential and together change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have JAMAUL Ford. And if this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And if you're on iTunes, go ahead and rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps get the word out to great leaders and entrepreneurs like yourself. Please help me welcome JAMAUL with Business Essential Keys. This is Cedric Francis, and you are listening to Lead to Greatness.
My background in history is really in business, real estate. Recently, me and my team, we recently had a speech and hearing clinic. Okay. And we were able to speech and hearing clinics to about 20,000 patients a year. We were able to generate about $3.5 to $4 million a year there. So for me now, I'm transitioning into taking those same strategies and helping other clinics and helping other people be able to profit and really help profit by helping others. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to talk about, Wealthless, which is my program that I've developed. But one of the biggest things, even in entrepreneurship, I've always felt that we've gotten completely wrong is the idea of we want to reap rewards without actually planting the seeds to reap rewards. And the very simple aspect of it is, if you want apples, you have to plant apple seeds.
Yes, sir.
You can't get apples without planting apple seeds. So most businesses are really built on the foundation of what you're passionate about, what you want to give out into the world. And I feel like that's a very, very big part of what my company does. We're working directly to build bespoke programs for different entities, different medical facilities, really just to help cater and actually build things that are beneficial to the patients beyond the traditional in and out annual appointments.
You said something, I was like, man, it just stuck in my head. You said 20,000 patients. And I want to kind of talk about that because, I mean, that's a journey and that takes technique, that takes a great system, a great workflow, a great process, a great infrastructure to make things like this happen. So let me ask you this question. You're 20 now, but how long did it take to get there? And what are some of the things that you learned along the way to get to where you are right now?
Well, the irony of it is, in my work at the clinic, we started in 2016. So, and we were, I want to say by 2018, we were seeing about 8 to 10,000 patients a year. And really, it came from understanding the market and understanding a gap in the market. So let's say, for instance, microeconomics is one of the basics of business. And I think it's the biggest thing that people get wrong. And everyone hears it, supply and demand. We generally always try to give a supply without understanding that there's maybe not a demand for what we're trying to supply. So when you go out into the community, the British Army has this thing where they never send somebody out by themselves. They usually send 2 people out. That's called a scouting squad. Then you have a 4-man team. That's a firing squad. Then you have a platoon and so forth and so on. So when you have a scouting squad, when you have 2 people, your responsibility is to identify what the market wants. What do people want in the market? And can I service those people before I say, oh, I want to make t-shirts? Well, who told you they wanted t-shirts? Nobody told you they wanted t-shirts. You know what I mean? So, it's always good to get a good sample size. I always say you want to contact 50 people, and then from 50 people, you want to get to about 250 people. So when it comes to leads and it comes to reaching out, everyone has a minimum of maybe 100 people to 150 people in their phones. And those are your first warm leads to figure out if your services are needed from people or in the community or anything. So when you have an idea, your responsibility is to pitch that idea to the people that's closest to you.
Yeah.
And yes, some of them are not going to support you. Some of them will support you. The truth is 10% of people are going to love everything you do. 10% of people are going to hate everything you do. And the key is the other 80%, you want to try to sway them to the way of being a part of what you're doing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
always feel like it's super important to understand supply and demand. So I say all that to say, we identified a gap in the market with early intervention screenings, where most schools, even in Texas and Louisiana, has a responsibility to have screens done for kids in odd grades.
Mm.
And there's one nurse to every 500 kids, and these nurses can't provide these services. That was a huge demand. And so for us, being able to meet that need was the key to us being able to be successful very early.
Okay.
You know how they always say opportunity is around you, you just don't see it. But the
Yeah.
truth is, you have to be exposed to the right things to understand that that is an opportunity. So for me, an example would be in the same instance, if you have a toothache and it's 12 o'clock at night, and someone says, you pay me $500 and I pull that tooth out, you're probably going to pay that $500 to get that tooth
Absolutely.
out because it's an extreme pain point for you at that point.
Mm.
So demand requires there be a certain level of pain associated with servicing people in order to be profitable.
Yeah.
If there's no pain, then you're always going to be fighting against the current.
Oh man, that's a knowledge bomb off the gate. Man, this is so great. Let me ask you this question. What are some things, because you talked about that pain point, and I know there's listeners right now like, wow, yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel that. I feel that. I feel what you're saying. So what are some of the things? Some of the things someone can do right now.
Yeah. So I'll go back to the pandemic. Generally, when there's crisis, there's opportunity to make money.
Yeah.
And the first thing you always want to do is be aware of what the need is. An example, I'm here in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. Was very devastating for the city of New Orleans, but there was huge opportunity in the construction industry, right?
Yeah.
During the 2008 collapse, financial collapse, there was great opportunity in the housing market to make money and be profitable because interest rates went down.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, because everything became virtual, people became more accessible. So now you can actually touch more people and actually provide services to a greater scope of people. In return, you also got lower cost labor depending on what you're doing because now what was accessible to people with millions and billions of dollars, i.e., people who work overseas, now people like you and me have access to people who can help with back end work from overseas. And
Yeah.
so understanding that opportunity, unless you have already established a brand, no one's going to buy your $50 t-shirt if they could go on Temu and buy a t-shirt for $5. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And so you're competing against a large scale entity. I say all that to say my program Wealthless is a program that allows people, medical clinics, and other entities to help service the customers they already have in a more complete 360 way. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example. And it's the easiest example. And most of these things are common sense that I'm saying, but people really don't see them that way. So take going to the dentist. When you go to the dentist identifies you have cavities, right? And so he says, okay, you have cavities, you need to come back and get a filling. You get the filling, you go to the counter, you pay, and you leave. There's huge opportunity for that dentist to offer you tertiary services. Let me give you an example. Why did you get those cavities in the first place? Because you didn't have proper care and proper things needed to be able to maintain your tooth health.
Mm.
So it makes sense that that dentist should be offering subscription boxes of toothpaste, toothbrush, dental floss, teeth health things, pamphlets, newsletters, additional information. It not only helps the customer, but it helps establish a better relationship between the patient and the physician. And so, even from that particular standpoint, it repeats itself in many different industries. So when we sell someone something or we provide a service for someone, as entrepreneurs, we generally tend to find ourselves looking for the next customer. And we should re-engage our current customers to see how we can service them better.
Wow.
Everyone knows the greatest form of marketing is word of mouth. No matter how much social media is here, no matter how much AI is here, when you need assistance, the first thing you're going to do is ask people you know.
Yeah.
The second thing you're going to do is check Google, and you're going to look at the Google ratings of who you're looking at to see who you should go to. And
Yeah.
so keeping these particular things in mind helps you understand what services are needed, how to understand supply and demand, and how to service people at scale and grow a company quickly, to be honest with you.
Man, that is a knowledge bomb. I want to talk a little bit more about the wealth list.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of background about it, to be
Okay.
honest. What happened was in the clinic, we were firing our second manager. And the reason we were firing our second manager was because we were having great success out in the community providing services, but we weren't transferring those people over into coming into the clinic on a regular basis. For me, I knew that these people were great people, but KPIs are KPIs, numbers are numbers. And so we have to go with what the numbers say. So I took it upon myself to really dive into it, really focus, and really try my best to figure out how can we get these people to come into the clinic. So around November 2018, my primary physician calls, "Hey Jamal, it's time for your annual appointment." I'm like, "I'll come in December." December comes around, I'm like, "I'll do it in January." January comes around, I'm like, "Hey, I'll do it in
Yeah.
February." Finally, my
Yeah.
family's like, "Tomorrow, did you go to the primary care physician?" I say, "No, because I got so much other things going on." And in that moment, it finally clicked in my head. I said, I have been neglecting my health this whole time. So I know when I go to the doctor what they're going to tell me. I know they're going to be like, "Hey, Jamal, you're not really taking care of yourself." That has a negative connotation, has a negative feeling, right?
Yeah.
So what I decided to do was find a way to constantly engage my clients into making them feel like they're a part of what we're doing. I think in that year, the first thing I ran was an Amazon Echo campaign, which was relatively new at that time. And we had this thing where if you came 25 times to your appointments, we would give you a free Echo device. And it was a whole, it was like kind of like, punch card system.
Right.
But we were doing speech therapy, and we also had games built in the Echo Dot that would help parents with assisting their kids with speech therapy. So it not only was just a prize to give away, it also helped with implementing the curriculum that the therapists had already given them. So our no-show rate went from like close to 70% to being like maybe 25%
Wow.
because people seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, right? You
Yes.
gave them something to shoot for. And so Wealthless was built off of that same model, that same idea of how can I engage my audience? How can I engage my customers on a regular basis? And the last thing I'll say about this is a stat that I think everyone should remember. There's something called Dunbar's numbers. Dunbar's numbers says that you can only have a relationship with 150 people at a time as a human being. So when someone new comes into your life and you engage that person in relationship in some capacity, someone else kind of fades out.
Wow.
Now, what actually establishes that relationship is generally 7 hours of communication or interaction, 11 interactions, so 7 hours of content, 11 interactions, and 4 different locations. These numbers here are the same reason why when Beyonce Dogs dies and people are like, "Oh my God, Beyonce Dog." Well, you don't know Beyonce. You've never seen Beyonce's dog,
Right.
but you've engaged with Beyonce's content so much that you feel like you know her and you feel like you're a part of what she's doing. And so when you want to have customers, you have to continuously engage that customer on a regular basis. So that way, when you give them negative information, "Oh, you have high blood pressure. Oh, you have this. Oh, you have this." They're going to receive it well because they communicate with you on a regular basis. This can be newsletters, this can be social media, this can be text message reminders, this can be a lot of different things. But I do believe that understanding the psyche and understanding what customers want is the foundation of what wellness is built off of. And so what we come in and we do a little bit of reputation management, also looking to scale and make more money. And we come in and we create a system unique to them based on their customer base that helps them not only generate money, but also helps their clients have a higher satisfaction level.
And knowledge. Bomb. This is great. This is really great information, man. You're really helping us on today. I want to shift real quick. I want to talk about you and your passion. In this season of your life, what are you most passionate about?
So for me, I've always been consistently passionate about helping others.
Gotcha.
And really just giving to others and making sure that I'm able to impact the world in a way that makes sense for me. So I'm a second generation entrepreneur. So my mother owns two daycares. She's owned a lot of other companies
Okay.
in the past. And so for me, I grew up in entrepreneurship. I grew up in understanding people, understanding how to give people, and understanding the needs of people. And so for me, I understand that many entrepreneurs are generally transitioning into entrepreneurship from being a technician. So an example of a technician is I'm a great baker, so I'm going to open up a bakery. And you see it from the insights of a technician, but not necessarily seeing it from management and entrepreneurship. And so for me, I come in and I try to assist people with that because that's generally maybe around $8,000 to $10,000 a month is where they generally see where they can't scale or grow anymore because they don't have the infrastructure to really do that. So I'm a real big person about favor and making sure that I build relationships with other people. And if you have great relationships with people, money is going to come if you have great relationships. So understanding your why is super important.
Yeah.
Everybody's why is key. Whenever you know what you're passionate about, generally you're going to find yourself giving anyway.
Mm.
So whether it's giving, I always say there's five things you can sell in life. There's really just five. And
Yeah.
that would be access, convenience, validation, security, and opportunity.
My
Those
goodness.
are the five things that you sell. Whatever products, whatever services you put around it is generally that. So an example is I own a nail salon. I'm selling validation. Uber Eats, I'm selling convenience. I'm selling access. The government, they generally sell security. I can keep you safe from whatever. B2B is generally always selling opportunity.
Yeah.
So understanding what you're selling people and understanding how to voice what you're selling people is super important. Let's say I have a nail shop and I'm selling validation. Then I know my marketing should be around, you're going to look so much better with this, and everyone around you is going to say you look good with this. That is what validation is, because people want the validation of others.
Yeah.
And so and so you generally find yourself serving when you're doing those particular things. I'm a huge believer of when you find yourself lost in life, you have to give. You have to give when you're lost in life, because if you don't know what you should be doing, you should always be giving and you should always be growing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always mean financial. It can be health, it can be spiritual, it can be emotional growth, it could become financial growth.
Yeah.
So if you don't find yourself having success in your business or whatever, then say, how can I give back? How can I grow in a different avenue that may help me grow my business somewhere else? So yeah,
Yeah.
systematically, based on when you are redefining, or you find yourself in a transitional place in life, or you find yourself in a redefining place in life, I always find it super important to redefine or re-understand what your values are as a person. And for me, sometimes even for myself, when I find myself in transition, I go online and I take a values test. I go online and I take a test to identify what my values are. I take a test to understand what my strengths, what my weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Because sometimes as an entrepreneur, looking out of the window at other people, you can become lost, like because
Mm.
you see success or what society deems success to be on the other side,
Yeah.
and you identify that what society says is success is not what I'm having. And so what you started doing, you find yourself falling off the path. And
Mm.
so to realign with the path, I generally always take a self-assessment online to really understand where I am, what I want for myself, what I want for other people. I'm going to say something, and this is going to be it's going to sound dark, but it's not dark. And it's going to be, but understand, there have been times that I've even wrote my own obituary.
Mm.
Let me tell you why. Because in my mind, I'm saying, what do I want people to say about me when it's all
Yes.
said and done? Like,
Yes.
what do I want others to say about me? And so, even though it's an exercise most people don't want to do,
Yeah.
I
That's super.
believe it's an exercise
Yeah.
to realign yourself to understand that, hey, I'm doing and I'm striving towards what is for me and not for someone else.
I want to ask you this quick question. So you're talking about, and man, this is so great. The values, knowing your values, and so how often do you do this? Because things change in seasons.
Yeah, seasons change,
Yeah,
things change, and
yeah.
it's very. It just depends. It depends on if you find where you find yourself
How you
lost
feeling?
in regards to it.
Okay,
Like you
gotcha.
can be lost professionally when it
Yeah,
comes to business. You
yeah,
can be having great success in business, be lost emotionally or
yeah,
spiritually.
yeah,
And so and then it affects the chain affects everything when one thing breaks down. The
yeah,
one I read this book recently called Alter Ego, and the guy who wrote the book Alter Ego is the guy who helped Kobe Bryant with the Black Mamba mentality. He also is the guy who helped Beyonce with Sasha Fierce. And these particular alter egos are not people that these are people like these are, I would say, characters within the person. They're not different characters.
yeah.
One of the best examples I would say is you probably have, or I probably have, and many other listeners probably have like 3 or 4 nicknames that they've been given over their lifetime.
Yeah.
Each one of those nicknames are alter ego. They each have their own story. They each have their own way of coming about.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
all have their history of each one. And so sometimes they all make a part of who you are. And sometimes even when it comes to that, I look at myself and I look in the capacities that I'm operating in, and then I will define what part of me is doing that. Like what part of that is that, and I go by on social media, I go by Jamal the Maven. So is this Jamal the Maven? He's a teacher. He's the person who's teaching.
yeah.
I have an alter ego. I'm saying this, I probably said I have a alter ego that I call I got one I call boss man, where I come in and I'm just like, this is what it is, this is what it's not,
Yeah.
and straightforward. But I
Yeah.
have to like clearly define those things. And then it also,
Mm.
because I've clearly defined my personal values, it actually helps me to be able to operate in multiple capacities.
Oh, Jamal, this is amazing, amazing, amazing knowledge bomb. Man, listen, this is what I want to do, man. You're saying some amazing things, man. And that's the listeners right now, like, man, you know what? I want to know where he's at. And listen, everything, all of his connections going to be in the show notes. But I want you to tell us right now, if someone wants to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Yes, so you can follow me on social media at Jamal the Maven on Instagram. Also on Twitter, Jamal the Maven, where I'm always giving out tips and things like that. Also, you can find my company at brandmaven.io. That's brandmaven.io. And you can identify our services and also get more information about Wealth List if you're looking to scale your business and generate more income. And those are the general places you can definitely find information about me. Feel free to DM me. Feel free to contact me. However, and I'm always willing to give a tips. So if you message me, you have a question, whatever, it's okay. I'm going to answer your question. So don't feel information. The game is to be told, not to be sold. So for
Yes.
me, I'm definitely one to give, and just because information is plentiful out there, and I think that people should have the right information. So feel free to reach out.
Amazing, 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 amazing. Thank you, man. This is really, really great, man. I love your heart, love what you're doing, and how you are changing the world, and the best way, according to your purpose and your value, man. Great. Kudos to what you do. Keep doing what you do. I do have one question. At what point should someone consider reaching out to you, a entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I would say most of the time, I would say people should reach out to me if they're looking to scale their business. Like, let's say you're at a roadblock, you don't really know where else to turn. You are generating revenue, but you feel like you should be generating more revenue. You feel like you're wearing three different hats.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're wearing three different hats, go read this book called The E-Myth. It'll make it all make sense. But definitely, if you feel like you're feeling overwhelmed, that is generally the time you should reach out to me. If you are starting a business and just starting out, definitely still reach out to me. I can definitely guide you to incubator programs and different things that can help you. But I will say that success does not happen overnight. If you follow me on social media, you'll hear me say that all the time. It's a constant grind. And so many times the answers that you're looking for are not going to be answers you want to hear. But at the same time, I'm willing to help. If you reach out and ask me, I'm more than willing to guide you in the right direction. So yeah.
Jamal. Thank you. On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We want to thank you for joining us today on the Lead to Greatness podcast. So remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace.